Hello, I'm Bill Monroe, and welcome to episode 136 of 2-Minute Talk Tips, the podcast that opens with a practical public speaking tip in the first 2 minutes before getting into a deeper discussion about public speaking. Today's tip comes to us from special guest Heather Vickery.
Do everything within your power to step onto a stage as your true and honest self. So do the work in advance to know who you really are, what you have to give people, and what you're going to gain from the experience. Authenticity is something that people can see from very, very far away. And if you aren't true to yourself on stage, people will know it. So take the time to know what your goals and objectives are and do that work so that you bring the best version of yourself possible to the stage.
Stick around, and after the break, we'll hear more from Heather Vickery. Welcome back. Man up is a phrase that I don't like. Most folks understand it to mean that it's time to just do something that's hard or that you're afraid to do. You just have to man up and get out there and get it done. But obviously, it's a sexist term. It implies that being afraid to do things is womanly and doing the tough stuff despite fear is manly. And that's a dichotomy that just isn't true. Instead, I prefer the exhortation to fortify instead of man up. Sometimes you do need to muster all your energy and willpower to accomplish something that's difficult, that you're reluctant to do, that you have fear holding you back from. Fortify captures the spirit of going ahead and doing what needs to be done without insulting a significant portion of your audience. I've been thinking about this today because today's guest is the host of the Brave Files podcast, a personal coach, a speaker, an author, and a musical theater enthusiast. Heather Vickery often finds herself telling her clients, "So what? Do it scared." So now, let's meet Heather. So Heather, thanks so much for joining us here on 2-Minute Talk Tips this week.
Thanks for having me, Bill. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So, let's get right into it here. What was your earliest memory of speaking in front of a group of people or performing in front of a group?
I don't know that I ever remember not speaking in front of a group. I can remember reenacting Annie at the age of 4 or 5 and pretending I was climbing up that ladder. I have a musical theater degree and background, and I love to be on stage. But what's interesting is I stepped away from it for a very long time. My life was in what, as I look back, seemed like years worth of transition. And probably maybe about 8 or 9 years ago, I got invited back onto stage to start talking about some things I was doing professionally and realized this is absolutely where I belong.
It's amazing how once it gets into your blood, once you know you love being on the stage, it's just such a powerful thing to be able to connect with an audience like that.
It's fun. I always say I never need to do drugs because I get the high from public speaking or being on stage, and why would you need to do drugs? You can just go talk to a crowd. You'll be fine.
Absolutely. And there are some of those magical presentations where you walk off the stage and, it feels like your teeth are buzzing from the energy.
Oh, yeah.
And what I think is really interesting, too, is there are a number of people who feel that way, but the vast majority of people who have to take a stage don't get that same charge from it.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking that as we were talking about it. I was like, I wonder if our perspective here is a little bit unique. And I know some famous people. I think it was Johnny Carson who said he threw up before he went on stage every time. I could have the celebrity wrong. So, and I get it. For me, I get a little, nervous I don't think is the word, but I get a little jittery just as I'm preparing to walk on stage. But as soon as I'm up there, the energy just clicks in. I feel sad for people who hate it when they're up there. When I was talking about, what I think you can take away, it's just simply that if you come into something very authentically and you have honest and vulnerable stuff to share with people, it makes it a lot easier to be comfortable, I think, from my experience, than if you're trying to fake it till you make it.
I think a lot of that comes down to the advice I tend to give folks is that it's not about you. It's about your message and it's about your audience. And when you can focus on that, that can make it a little bit easier.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. It's they're not in it because they want to criticize you or question you. They're in it because they want to learn from you. If you have something to help them be better or stronger or try something new, like whatever it is, whatever the reason is you're speaking, that's what the gift that you can give. So it's about the gift. Right.
And I think when I've watched speakers present, even people that I personally did not care for whatever reason, I never wanted to see them fail. And if you look at is your perspective, when you watch from an audience, do you want the speakers to fail? Your audience doesn't want you to fail either.
No, absolutely not. I use that analogy when I talk about asking for help. In my career, people hate to ask for help in any way possible. And then I'll say, well, how do you feel when somebody asks you for help? I'll ask you, Bill, how do you feel when somebody asks you for help?
I am thrilled to help them in any way I can. I'm looking for a way to say yes.
Absolutely, right? So that's the way people feel when you ask them as well. And so I feel like these things so totally intertwine with one another. And just remember that that's what it's all about. They're not judging you. They want to support you. They want to help you help them.
A number of years ago, I was watching an episode of, I think it was Person of Interest.
All right, then. Which was, I've never seen that show.
It was sort of a procedural cyberpunk computer, whatever. The point is, this one guy had to curry favor with a potential suspect in a bar. Okay. And before asking his target to do something for him, he asked the person to help him with something. So the normal approach many folks think about is, if I want to get somebody to do something for me, the first thing I need to do to build a relationship is to help them out.
Yeah.
But that then makes people uncomfortable. If instead you give them an opportunity to help you, then they're more inclined to build that relationship.
I do that when I speak. I don't talk at audiences because I think it's boring. I don't want to sit in an audience where somebody's talking at me. And so I will ask people, will you help me? Will you play with me? Will you tell me what you think about this kind of thing, just to sort of loosen them up and get them involved? And we sort of feed off of that energy.
Right. And it helps establish them by giving them a level of expertise as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because they're in it. They're here. Now they're part of it. And everybody wants to feel like they're part of something. I think you want to feel connected, and they're going to walk away feeling much better about what they've just experienced.
So, as you're getting ready to start all that, what are you doing in that 5 minutes before you take the stage?
I don't review my notes because I've done that all before. I think I just connect with why I'm there. What can I do for the people in the audience? What can they do for and with me? What I want from the experience, and just go in and go after it.
Sort of a refocusing on the goal, and the purpose.
That's a big thing that I do and that I teach and I coach people on, is staying on top of your purpose, your goal, and reflection, and constantly reassessing, is this thing working for me? Am I getting the results that I want? So yeah, I think that's about on point.
Well, awesome. Well, and part of talking about the goals and talking about the focus is a lot of what you're talking about too is about fear and bravery. And so what does bravery mean to you?
So that's a great question. I have an entire podcast dedicated to it, and I do a lot of work around bravery. And so I think people used to believe that bravery meant that you were fearless and that nothing was going to stand in your way and you weren't going to be scared. Well, I call BS on all of that, because fear is not the enemy, and nor is there anything wrong with it. It's a human instinct, and it's there to serve a purpose. Bravery is about doing it anyway. It's about overcoming and not letting the thing, whatever the thing is, get in your way. And there are so many ways, big and small, to step courageously and bravely into your life and into connection and work and relationships that then impact everyone around you and just make everything better.
So it's not like, so you don't really have to overcome the fear. You just have to do it anyway.
Yeah, it isn't about that. I actually have a t-shirt. My that my podcast put out that says brave, and then it has the greater than sign and fearless. Brave is greater than fearless. It's unrealistic to think that you're going to be able to just not ever be scared anymore. You may not be scared about the same things over and over. You may learn how to manage that, but there are going to be new things that feel a little frightening. And you can use that energy, I always say, for good or for evil. You can use it to shut you down, or you can use it to push you forward and up over. The choice is yours.
Well, that is fantastic. And we generally say we like choices.
Yes, I love choices. You always have a choice. I swear that is so much of the thing that I spend time with, is reminding people you are not stuck. No matter if you feel that way or not, if you don't want to be stuck, you're not. There's always a choice. There's always something you could do differently to create a different outcome or build a new scenario. And when you feel like you're super stuck, you just want to dig in and maybe list out. I'm all about making lists. List out what different options are, what different possibilities are, and then just pick one and try it. If it doesn't work, you can pick a different one. You're not stuck.
There's a lot of power in having those lists too, and just pulling stuff out of your brain and putting it down somewhere to either see it, to mark it off, or to just clear up the brain cycles so it doesn't have to take up space in there.
That's a big one. That last one is huge. That's why I talk to people about making lists. I always suggest at the end of their workday, like seriously blocking off the last 5 minutes of your day to make a list about what you want to do for the next morning, because it's a nice way to wrap up your day. And then it clears that mental energy and that mental space so that you can move into personal time. You're not laying in bed thinking about it for the most part. And when you sit down at your desk the next day, you have some place to start. And that's the biggest thing, I think, with productivity, effectiveness, and motivation. It isn't that you don't have the skills. It's that there's usually so much to do, you just don't know where to start. And so often we don't. Then we go into email or social media or whatever and do something else because we just don't know where to begin.
And then wonder why all that other stuff didn't get done.
Exactly.
I think Harry Potter fans are familiar with the idea of the pensieve, where the wizards could just pull stuff out of their brain to store it and process it for later. And I like to think of my paper lists as, Dumbledore's pensieve.
I love that. It's a great visual.
So when it comes to fear of the stage that we've talked about, and we've talked a little bit about our experience, how do you help folks get past their fear of the stage?
Yeah, I really believe that knowledge is power. And if you know that you know what you're talking about and what your objectives are, that gives you a lot of courage. Do the work. Know your stuff.
That simple sometimes.
It is that simple sometimes. I mean, there's a confidence you have to work in. I spend a lot of time with people working on how to build up their confidence, how to prove that they know their stuff. So you can do that in smaller ways, in smaller group formats, and getting sort of that feedback that you are indeed an expert at what it is that you're going to talk about. So you can build that muscle, but it's just in doing it. It's repetitive doing it.
Awesome. Simple, but not easy.
Exactly.
And I think that also then feeds back to what you were talking about earlier when we talk about being authentic. When you're authentic, it's also a lot easier to be the expert and to know your stuff versus when you're trying to fake it in a different area.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was actually just on a group coaching call earlier today, and one of my clients was talking about the fact that she didn't feel like things weren't working well for her professionally because she didn't feel like she belonged in the space. And I called her out because she hadn't. And I said, but based on everything I know about you, you didn't belong in that space. You were not being your true and authentic self. You weren't getting the results that you wanted. You weren't able to do the things you wanted to do. So sometimes imposter syndrome is telling you to find the thing that's actually yours. Sometimes it's total BS and it's in your way and you need to work past it, but sometimes it's smart. So make sure that you know why you're doing something and why you want to be there. That's so very important.
So what's the biggest mistake you see your clients making when it comes to their speaking on their job or at their other initiatives then?
Probably just lack of preparedness. Really, that sounds that simple, but practicing, knowing what what you want to do, getting feedback from other people so that you can make sure you're connecting well. That builds confidence. And when you have confidence and you walk onto the stage or into a workshop scenario or whatever, people will know and they just feed off of it.
And that also feeds back to what you were talking about earlier with the idea of asking somebody for help. Sometimes asking somebody for help can be as simple as asking them to sit there while you go through your presentation or a part of your presentation with them to get that feedback.
Absolutely. That's a wonderful way to ask for help. And you have to trust people, because I know what all the blocks are, right? Oh, they don't have time. They don't really care. They don't, they want to bother with this. You'll have to trust people to build their own boundaries. And if they really can't do it, to say, I want to help you, but I can't do it today, maybe another time, or I just can't make that work. If they say yes, trust them that they want to be there for you and give people the chance to support you.
One of the things I've encountered too when I've taught people sales skills, folks who don't want to go ahead and ask a customer to buy or ask a customer to do something, is that that's actually very rude, because they're denying the customer the opportunity to say no. If you're afraid they're going to say no, great, give them the opportunity to say no, because they might even say yes.
Don't make that decision for them. My own life and business coach, when I first started working with him years ago, would say, don't assume somebody's financial situation. Don't assume what they prioritize or what they value. Give them the opportunity. You have something wonderful to present to them. Give them the opportunity to make a decision for themselves. Before
you went ahead and made this shift in your career, started working with your business coach and went down the path of coach and speaker, and outside of your musical theater background, how much of a part of your career was speaking already?
Well, not much of it prior to that, in between, after graduating from college and moving forward. But what I did was I was an event planner, event producer, and director. So while I was not ever really the one on the stage, I was always stage managing. I was always producing constantly. And there's a lot of that same energy at play.
Right. And you also got to see a ton of other speakers in that context. And I mean, that's got to be an invaluable experience too, as you're speaking now, having been that event manager and that director. I mean, what are some of the mistakes you saw other speakers making that you were bringing to your event?
Speakers make mistakes. Like I said, I think just talking at people or just reading off of a presentation is a big mistake. It's just not connective. People don't feel good about being in the room for that. I think any opportunity you can have a conversation and be interactive is really, really valuable. Give them some visual content, though. I'm not saying don't do a presentation, because it's nice, but have some fun with it. Try to relax a little. Humor is a really good way to connect with people. Don't be stuffy if you can avoid being stuffy. I think that makes a really big difference. Awesome.
And show up on time.
Oh, my goodness. Show up early. If you're the show, don't be late.
Right. So, and so today you're not stage managing all these events, but you're doing a lot more of these keynotes. You're in one-to-many presentations and also hosting workshops to help people overcome these challenges they have. And how are you balancing now what you do with workshops versus what you do with more of the one-to-many?
Yeah, that's a really great question. The main difference is in the workshops, we take the time to dig in on each topic a little bit more. I really push people to get into motion and get into action. So in the speaking and presenting in that way, we may have a worksheet, we may work through it, and I may encourage people to jot things down that they want to take action on. In the workshops, we start taking the action.
So what sort of actions are they taking in the workshop?
It could be a number of different things. I do a lot of presentations and speaking around building boundaries. I believe boundaries to be the key to freedom, truly. And so we talk about pain points. What doesn't feel good to you? When do you not feel balanced? What makes you feel balanced? What could you implement? What sort of boundaries could you put in place to communicate better, to feel better, to get more of a result that you want? And once you've identified those things, then you have to start making a plan to achieve them. So who do you need to talk to? What are those rules? How do you follow through with those boundaries that you've set up for yourself? That's a really great example. But I do for goal setting. I do it for all sorts of things, but all of it in the vein of helping you live a more fulfilled life personally and professionally to get the results that you want.
Interesting. So you have your participants then sharing that stuff back out with the rest of the attendees at the workshop?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Yeah. Obviously not all of it, because usually we don't have time to get into everything they would ever do, but everybody always shares at least one thing that they're going to work on. If we can get into motion right then, we will. One of the things I always try to do 98% of the time is end with asking people to make a commitment to something. If I have the time, depending on the size of the audience, to go around the room and say, what's the one thing you're committing to doing after this experience, I will. Otherwise, I'll do something that's a little more broad and say, well, you all commit to trying X, Y, and Z. And then I invite them to let me know. Send me an email. Send me a message on social media. Let me know how it went for you. I'd love to hear. I'd love to support you.
It's when you start looking at how a lot of times you'll find that the content that makes up a keynote can be the content that makes up a workshop too, even though it's a 45 minutes versus 4 hours or 8 hours. And it's just how much you are specifically calling on the audience members to do at that point in time. Without
a doubt. Absolutely.
And expanding beyond that, you've also launched the podcast that we talked about.
Yeah.
So what is the Brave Files about?
So the Brave Files is an interview podcast where I invite people from all walks of life to come in and share their story of how they chose to live courageously, or how they currently choose to live courageously. So everybody has a story. And this really helps people understand, again, the whole concept that the goal isn't to be fearless, it's to be brave, that you can feel the fear and do it anyway. And that you get motivation, inspiration, and connection from hearing the journeys other people have gone down. So we have the most wide variety of stories, from people who are social justice warriors to people who minister to, surrogate parents, and people who have lost children to cancer, and people who live with lupus. And, the variety is extraordinary, and there's just something for everyone in each episode. We have a charity component each week. I believe in the importance of giving back and building up as a community, and so we talk about that. We always talk about celebrating and gratitude, and how that has impacted their life and how it can impact yours. And so we really just connect every week.
Fantastic. So why did you start it?
I known for a long time that I wanted to have a podcast, and I'd known that because it's my favorite form of learning. It's my favorite form of media. I'm a big audio fan, and I just didn't know what I wanted my show to be about. I'd played with a lot of different ideas, and nothing really motivated me. And one day in, I would say, early March last year, 2018, I was in my kitchen, I was making dinner, and the idea just hit me. The Brave Files, literally the title came to me, and I was like, I could tell the stories of people who choose bravely. And that ties into my core values. It ties into what I do as a business, and I know that it connects with other people. And I immediately went to my computer. I purchased the domain name, and I put together a Google form and put it out on Facebook and said, I'm going to do this. If you have a story to tell, let me know. And I set myself a deadline of airing by April 12th, and I just went for it.
That's fantastic. And, when doing a show like this, it has to be a topic that you're passionate about, because the work involved in putting it together is really going to eat you alive if it's not something you really believe in and that you really want to talk about every week for, indefinitely.
Yeah, for however long. Absolutely. It's a total passion project for me, but I love it. There were some elements of it that I felt like were a drag, and I have been able to pull myself out of most of those. I have somebody now who handles my social media, and I have somebody who does the editing. Those were things that were making it not fun for me, and I've been able to change that up. And overall, I just absolutely love the connection and the stories, and it feels really good every week.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest perks I found from it is I get to talk to, some amazing people that I never would have connected with otherwise.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. It's so much fun.
So what's been the biggest surprise to come out of it?
I think in the end, the biggest surprise is how impacted all the listeners are. And that sounds so silly because I should have known that I wanted that, but I couldn't have foreseen the level to which it would cause people to create change in their own life. And I get reached, from my listeners all the time when they say, I've changed this, I've started doing this, I feel good about this, and I learned that from your show, and my life is better. So that's been a really beautiful surprise.
Love it when that stuff happens.
I know, right? That is totally the goal.
So how does it support your speaking today?
It's continued to build brand awareness. While it's not a business podcast and I don't necessarily talk to what I do or speak to what I do, it comes up naturally in conversation. And it's continued to tell people that I'm out here and that I have something to share. And if they're interested in learning more about it or sharing it with people and their audiences, that they can reach out to me.
And if folks want to know more about you and what you're up to, where should they go?
So easy to find me. It's vickeryandco.com. That's my handle on Instagram as well. On LinkedIn, I'm just Heather Vickery. My kids think it's so hilarious that you can type my name in on Google and my picture pops up and all of these links. I haven't the heart to break it to them that that's just pretty much everybody anywhere. I'm not that special for it, but that's okay.
Well, when you've got a name like Bill Monroe, that does not happen very often.
Well, that could be true. That could be true, Bill.
So, Heather, this has been fantastic. Thanks so much for being on the show this week.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It has been fun. I don't often get to just talk about the speaking element of my business, so that was a joy.
It's great that I get to share Heather's conversation this week. As I record this, we are just a few days away from the Thanksgiving holiday here in the United States. Giving thanks and expressing gratitude is an important life skill, and on December 3rd, Heather can help with that. Heather's new book, Grow Grateful, a gratitude journal for kids and families, will be released on December 3rd, and you'll find links to that over at 2minutetalktips.com/Heather. This book is designed to help you create intentional and impactful conversations with kids about gratitude. Doing so will lead to life-changing habits and increase their own happiness and well-being, and give you delightful quality time together. The second edition of Heather's earlier book, Gratitude Journal, Shift Your Focus, is also available. This beautiful journal offers space to record gratitude, personal wins, and 180 unique prompts to help you connect with gratitude in unique and surprising ways. What I think is important about these books is that the focus isn't just on being grateful because it's the right moral, ethical, or spiritual thing to do. Heather talks about gratitude as something that is good for you. It raises your spirits and it helps you feel better. These can be great presents for various holiday events that we have coming up, or they can even just help you kick off a new gratitude practice for yourself or your kids as we approach the time for New Year's resolutions. And yes, that time is rapidly approaching. So this year, don't man up. Fortify instead. Check out Heather's Brave Files podcast and books. You'll find all those links over at 2minutetalktips.com/Heather. Share this episode with one other person by giving them the link, 2minutetalktips.com/Heather. And of course, as always, don't get best, get better. Thanks a lot. I'm Bill Monroe, and I'll talk to you soon.
Two-Minute Talk Tips is a proud production of the Currently Speaking Podcast Network.